Hey everybody, have you ever wondered why Shopify doesn't handle professional invoicing out of the box? Well, I've discovered something that's going to change how you think about your store's invoicing process. Now, running a Shopify store is challenging enough without having to worry about creating professional, compliant invoices for every sale. And that's where Sufio comes in. They're the trusted invoicing solution that's already powering over 6,000 Shopify stores worldwide. And what I love about Sufio is how it completely automates the invoicing workflow. So whether you're B2C or B2B, it automatically generates and sends professional invoices, credit notes, and other essential documents. No more manual work or worrying about tax compliance. Their system has been validated by certified accountants to meet regulations around the world. Now, here's what makes Sufio very special. They're officially recommended by Shopify B2B invoicing. That's a huge vote of confidence in my books. Their templates are professionally designed and are super easy to customize with your own branding. You get automatic tax calculations and compliance for both domestic and international sales. And here's the best part, their in-house support team actually helps you set everything all up. We're talking holding hands right from the beginning. So I've arranged something special for my listeners. If you visit sufio.com, that's sufio.com/fastlane, and you can get exclusive 90-day free trial. That's a full 3 months to transform your invoicing process and see the difference for yourself. Now remember, that's sufio.com/fastlane. Sufio is the professional invoicing made simple for Shopify stores. Plain and simple. So go check them out.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, hey there, Shopify merchants, marketers, and e-commerce friends. Welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt, and today I've got a really fantastic conversation lined up for you today. And it's something that, in my opinion, really affects a lot of businesses today, and it's customer service, both pre and post customer service. And today's guest is Austin Reese. And Austin is the head of product marketing and revenue enablement at a company called Gladly. And he's got really, we have a little prep doc here, but he has some amazing insights that he wants to share today. A little bit from some of the previous companies he used to work for, Stripe and Route. But one thing that's very, very interesting about Gladly is just how a lot of these brands now, just think like Nordstrom's, think about Warby Parker, think about Crate & Barrel. One of the things that's really interesting about these businesses is they're all using Gladly's kind of AI-powered platform. Really, it's because of that is why a lot of the magic happens. And the results from what I can see have been quite incredible. We're talking like 470% yearly ROI and really cutting down a lot of the times that it takes to actually respond to a lot of these queries. So I think it's really interesting. But what really caught my attention for this recording today was I think Gladly really is kind of flipping the script, so to speak, on how we think about customer service. Hi, Austin. Welcome to E-commerce Fastlane.
Hey, Steve. Thanks so much for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's so exciting. So, customer service, in my opinion, really has come a long way in e-commerce over the years. I've been involved in e-commerce. I'm going to date myself here, but almost 15 years. I won't say 2 decades, but 15 years for sure. But I just would love to hear your take on how this customer service has kind of evolved over the years, especially now when we throw AI into the mix. Are you seeing any interesting changes that are happening about how a business is able to interact with their customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when looking back at the just general history of customer service, so you have kind of voice and email were the main touch points or channels in which people communicated with their customers originally. And then that expanded to things like chat and SMS and social and on and on. And so people started to add more and more channels. And I think one of the things that was really hard about that is legacy platforms really started on that voice and email space, and then they had to bolt on different channels or create new channels as time went on. And so one of the things that we kind of think about at Gladly is, okay, well, how can we make sure that the customer is center at every single interaction? That everything that we do helps agents and helps companies kind of personalize that experience for their consumers. And the main thing there is, okay, we wanted to build from the ground up all of the channels all in one place. And we also wanted to make sure that customers were treated like a human rather than a case. And so we built that directly within the platform so that the customer is at the center of every single conversation. And so I think when you ask the question about, how is the space changing today? I think everybody has started to kind of unify around that idea of, okay, let's make it as customer centric as possible. That's the best way to provide context into the experience so that we can best support the customer. But then what do we do with AI? I think AI is a huge buzzword today.
Yeah, for sure.
It's used a ton in the space. Back in whenever it was that Elon Musk took over Twitter, he got rid of a lot of people overnight there. And a lot of businesses started to look at their kind of OpEx and their headcount and say, is that something that I should be doing? Should I be kind of scrutinizing my budget as much as possible? And so I think AI, unfortunately, has kind of taken the perspective or the meaning of a cost-cutting tool. And I think one thing that I'm hoping that we talk about today is that we can kind of challenge that perception that AI is really a tool in your tool belt to enable your agents to be more effective, to automate some of the repetitive tasks that they're doing so that they can focus on higher value conversations, to assist them in ways that are not full resolutions, but partial kind of benefits before conversations get handed off to them. And so, yeah, I think the space is really moving toward more outcomes-based AI that's focusing on assisting agents in resolving conversation rather than a more kind of cost-cutting focused solution, which is a benefit for sure. But I don't think that that's really the strategic narrative that is going to win the market.
What's interesting though, I read too that satisfaction scores, to be honest with you, really caught my eye a bit. I see that, a lot of people do CSAT scores or they do other different types of scores. They want to see how their agents are or how the customers perceive the quality of the service that's actually happening. And I see that, a lot of Gladly brands have a 98% satisfaction score. And can you break us down a little bit about like what is that all about? I know this is the people first approach that you're talking about, but how is this being implemented in the real world? And we're also kind of, I don't want to throw Zendesk under the bus here, but it seems that Zendesk in the original days kind of started this whole kind of like ticketing system, and it was a little bit clunky and all that kind of stuff. And I think Gladly goes about it in a completely different approach. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about the satisfaction scores that come with the customer experience and why people feel that they want to give such high ratings to brands that are powered by Gladly.
Yeah. So I think we think about it in a couple of different ways. I think if you're going to have a world-class customer service team, they should be able to do a few different things. They should meet the customer where they are, meaning that at whatever channel they need to speak with the customer at, whether it's social or email or voice or SMS or chat, like that needs to be baked into the platform and easy for your agents to see every single conversation all in one place that's happening on those channels so that they have the context. The other part about that is the platform needs to have context. And I don't mean just the context of kind of your single lifelong conversation, but it also needs to plug into all of your operational data that you have about your customers. Things like, what have they ordered? Where are they shipping to? What's their contact information? Do they have loyalty points with us? What does our product catalog look like? And on and on and on. And really enriching their customer profile within the platform with that context allows you to really know who they are in regards or in relation to your business. And so I think that's one of the places where we really stand out is being able to say, okay, like if I'm an agent and I'm in there, I know that if I'm talking to Austin, he's a loyalty rewards member, maybe he's a gold status member, he's ordered these boots with us before, he reached out to us previously with a warranty claim. I know maybe he's a little bit frustrated. And so it gives you all of the information you need to be able to kind of deal with the situation in the best way possible with the best outcome for that customer. I think the other thing that we think about as well is customers want resolutions quickly. And so there's a lot of things that you can do to make that happen. And when something goes wrong and you're reaching out to customer support, it is a really good opportunity for you as a business to capitalize on a negative experience turned positive, which really turns people into long-term, proponents of your brand.
Yeah.
And so if we can easy to resolve conversations quickly, things like, where's my order? Can I do a return? Can I do an exchange? Can I submit a warranty claim? Can I get, this and that? If we can automate that and really free up your agents to be able to handle the things that only agents can do, more complex conversations, more high value conversations, I think that's where we really stand out.
One thing I noticed too, there is, you call it, it's even trademarked, but this kind of people match. And I kind of did a little bit of research on that. When, you talk about, finding the right hero at the right time, which implies that there's certain people that are a certain skill set and not just language. You could say, I'm looking for an Indian speaking operator. I mean, certainly that would be the right hero at the right time if it's a language based thing. But I think there's a lot of other senior or junior people that can handle certain types of conversations, like you're saying, more high value tasks. Can you talk a little bit about this whole people match process? Because it's very interesting to me.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to what we're trying to do is really provide the best experience for the customer. And so within your support team, you have different agents that have different skill sets. You might have some that are very focused on a specific product and they know it inside and out. You might have others who are really good salespeople on the side and they're also good at cross-sell and upsell opportunities. You might have some that understand your warranty and claims process and how to navigate that really well. And then you might have some who are really good at chat and kind of that text-based, but not great at voice. And so it really allows you to kind of create these different ways to pass customers off to your agents so that they're set up for success with the subject matter expert who can best handle that specific scenario. And so we use tools to determine, what are you reaching out for? What's the specific topic? And then we try and pair you or match you with somebody who can best kind of handle that situation for you and provide the fastest and best resolution.
One thing I noticed too is that I think this is very unique to Gladly because I don't see a lot of other competing solutions that have this, but you really truly have a multi-channel approach to customer experience. When we're talking about voice, we're talking through email, SMS, live chat, social media. There's a lot of channels that are, and some of these I think can be turned on and off depending on the business and kind of where they're at in their maturity and their complexity. But knowing that Gladly fully powers all of these channels. Can you talk a little bit about just the intentionality behind having all of these channels and how you're able to be a source of truth around all of these types of communication platforms?
Yeah. And I think this will resonate with anybody who's tried to use maybe one of the legacy customer service platforms before. Is, like I mentioned earlier, as they grew as a business, they were kind of adding on, maybe they were acquiring new companies that did a certain channel specifically. Maybe they were building solutions from the ground up, but it was a little bit later. I think if you're using those tools, you'll notice that it is hard to get all the information you need in one place. And especially if it's a case-based system where you're saying, okay, this was a case that they opened up an email, but I want to know what the phone conversation that happened earlier was all about. I might have to go to a different part of that customer's profile or a different part of the platform to access that. And so it just makes it really challenging for agents to be set up for success. And so for us, one of the main hypotheses, there were a couple, when we built Gladly was, okay, we need to make it really easy for all that context to be in one place. And to us, the context, one of the big pieces of the context is the channels. And so we built from the ground up a solution that has voice, that has email, that has chat and SMS and social. And, we're continually adding on channels, but all in one view. And so if I'm a customer, I can go if I'm an agent, I can go into the platform and I can say, okay, I can see this chat interaction that I'm having or this chat conversation that I'm having with a customer. And then I can also see the voice conversation that we had earlier. And there's a little summary of what it was through the AI. And then maybe I can see, okay, here's an SMS conversation that we had earlier, and so on and so forth, to really refresh your memory and treat them as the unique individuals that they are. And so I think the main thing is just all in one view, all in one place, so that it's easy to navigate and easy to quickly get the context you need to set them up for success.
Yeah, I love that. Now, what about, I know we dabbled a bit about it, mentioned about the Gladly AI component. I mean, it's certainly on everybody's radar. And, you clearly also have a product that's kind of pre-baked in to really help agents. I would call it an AI companion. I'm not sure if that's the greatest word or not, but it's interesting. Can you talk a bit about that? Because I think that's another intentionality around Gladly about, hey, there are, some basic things like canned responses, but it's way more advanced than just that. And so I'd like to kind of throw the baton back to you to saying, hey, how it is your AI model and your AI connection overall to the customer experience? We're talking like the conversations you've had in the past or certain other agent kind of conversations. It's so interesting that you're able to collect all of this data and give better context, which then helps how you are communicating with the customer. It's so interesting to me. So I'd love to hear some stories around how it works and some best practices.
Yeah, so I think the way that I like to think about this is in the space today, a lot of our competitors are focusing mainly on resolutions, which is a very valuable part of AI, right? Where you can resolve a customer inquiry without an agent having to interact with them whatsoever. And I think that's one piece of the puzzle. But the way that we like to think about it is, in addition to that, you also have these assists where you're maybe not kind of resolving a conversation in full, but you're gathering some data, you're doing some troubleshooting, you're kind of pre-filling a form, whatever it is, before it gets handed off to the agent to make sure that they have kind of all the information that they need to be successful. And I kind of equate this to like, most people nowadays have used AI in their day-to-day, and they can resonate with the idea that AI is not always going to be the final polished product, right? If you're using ChatGPT maybe, and you plug in a math equation, sure, AI is going to give you the exact answer. But if you're asking it to help you write something or edit something or think through an idea or something like that, it's going to get you a lot of the way there. But you as a human are in charge of kind of taking that information and deciding what to do with it for that final polished product. And so that's how we think about it the same way. And so maybe an example scenario is like if I'm a brand that's using Gladly and a customer calls in and they have an issue with one of their products and they say, the seam is coming undone on this boot that I just bought. AI can gather all the context needed to fill out that warranty claim. It can surface information to that customer to help them better understand the warranty process. It can confirm that something is under warranty. And then when it hands it off to that agent, it can say, okay, here's all of the warranty claim information that you'll need to fill out the form. Maybe even here is the form pre-populated. Here's all the context from the conversation. And then the agent doesn't have to ask them any additional questions. They'll have to repeat themselves. They can just say, look, I'm here to solve your issue. And I already know what your issue is. So I think that's a good way to kind of illustrate how that might work.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, what about some success stories? Because I think it always motivates me, and I know my listeners the same way. They love to hear, the challenges that maybe others have faced, and then knowing, and then they've, vetted the solution and now are a Gladly customer. And then, what does great look like now that they've implemented the solution? I don't want to put you on the spot here, but there's a lot in the resources section of, other brands. And clearly there's lots of tickers going by of brands that are connected to Gladly. But is there any Shopify business of note that you could maybe talk about publicly about the success that they're getting out of using Gladly?
Yeah. So I'd love to talk about Rothy's. So Rothy's, if you're familiar, they're a brand that makes these super stylish shoes and bags that are washable and eco-friendly, and they're a pretty big player in the Shopify space.
Yeah.
And so, their customer base was growing really quickly. They needed to step their customer service game, but it's not really easy to keep things personal and efficient when you've got more people reaching out than ever before, right? And so what they did was they started to look for a solution that could help them handle all these conversations, scale, while also keeping the quality there as far as the personal touch is concerned. And so that's when they found Gladly, and they really kind of resonated with our, single lifelong conversation, the customer at the center. You're not just managing tickets, you're making the customer service experience feel more human. And so instead of juggling those emails, chats, and calls separately that they were used to, the Rothy's team could really kind of focus on the customer because they could see everything about the customer in one place. And so once they got Gladly up and running, things really clicked for them. Customer service team could respond faster. They had way more context. Like instead of asking someone for their order details every time, they already had it right there. And it really saved time for them and made things smoother for their customer. And their team could also work better together because everything was centralized. And so I think, here's the big kicker. It worked. Their customers noticed the difference. They felt more taken care of, which, let's be honest, that's huge for a brand like Rothy's, especially as they grow. Mm-hmm. And so when you're trying to build loyalty and people coming back, every little interaction matters. And so Gladly was able to help them keep that personal boutique-esque experience as they scaled. And so I think from my perspective, Rothy's is a really cool one because it's a story about Rothy's really staying true to their values. They're about sustainability. They're about making things better, planet, for customers, really for everyone involved. And so partnering with us was also kind of a reflection of their brand in making sure that customer service kind of felt as thoughtful and as personalized as their products were intended to be.
Yeah, it's amazing. So what about the C-suite? Because I think there's a lot of people listening to the show that maybe are not frontline customer experience or customer service people. And so can you talk a bit about like what's baked into Gladly to help maybe director of customer experience? Like, is there a dashboard? What sort of KPI? I mean, I know there's some basic KPIs that, ticket volume and resolution times and all these kind of basic things, but just maybe from your perspective, because you are merchant facing and you understand what the C-suite might be looking for so that they can make sure that they're monitoring all the metrics that need to be monitored. So I'm sure I'd love to hear some stories around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the way that I think about this is if I'm somebody who's in the C-suite at one of these brands, there are kind of four main things that I care about. I care about efficiency. Are my agents and is my team able to do more things in less time? I care about operating expenses. Like, is the cost of supporting my customers worth it? And am I getting the most out of my dollar that I'm spending there? I think about customer satisfaction or customer experience, right? Where you're saying, okay, is the experience that my customers are having something that will make them, fans of our brand and long-term customers? And then I also think about revenue generation. And I think that's probably a newer one that not many people have adopted yet. I know that I've been talking to a lot of brands, like they're thinking about it, but not everyone's quite sure where to start. But figuring out how to utilize all of these advances in technology to point your agents more at generating more revenue for their brand. And so those are kind of the main four buckets, right? And so what we're trying to do on the product side is really build a tool that allows what we internally refer to as like the strategists within your organization or the CX managers. These are the people that need to be making decisions based off of the data to improve the business and figure out how to do that well. And so a lot of what we're focused on in product investment and things that we've released and things that we're, going to be releasing this year is focused around, can I look at the data and can I get prescriptive recommendations from Gladly on what to do with that information? And so an example might be, okay, you set up our Sidekick product, which is our AI kind of self-serve functionality. And maybe you do some training on it and figure out how to make it so that it can answer questions about a specific product. So let's say, you're buying a t-shirt and somebody wants to know the quality of the fabric and where it's made and kind of what the shipping process is like. Like, we can upload all of that into the back end so that it can answer that question for you. But there might be an additional detailed question that the customer is asking that we might, as a brand, not have in our FAQs that we want to know about because it's more frequent. And so, like, for example, maybe I'm asking about the t-shirt and I also live in Europe and the t-shirt's coming from the US. And so I want to know about shipping time for international. And maybe that's not something that we have in our knowledge base publicly accessible. What Gladly will do is it'll say, okay, we noticed that this was an answer that a customer asked that didn't get answered by the training models that you've put in place. And so we wanted to surface this to you with a recommended answer to put into your public facing knowledge base so that we could handle that on behalf of your agents in the future. And so I think that's a good example of how we are building products on the kind of like insights and action theme for managers to be able to say, okay, you see the data, you see the conversion rates, you understand where questions are coming from and the type of inquiries that are coming in. Let's proactively surface ways for you to automate more of those so that your agents can focus on what really matters. And let's also recommend like the exact wording and the copy for answering those questions that you can include in your knowledge base. I think we want to make it really easy for them to understand the data. We want to make it really easy for them to act on the data.
That's amazing. What about the tech stack? It's one of the conversations that I have a lot with people is saying, hey, you know what? I have existing pieces of technology. There's a lot of apps and marketing platforms that are kind of connected to a lot of existing businesses. And I did some research. I see that Klaviyo is one of your integration partners. And so can you talk a little bit about like that joining of the two like power players? Why are they working together? Because clearly you have an email solution available, but Klaviyo seems to be, the elephant in the room, or at least the dominant player when it's certainly on the plus side of Shopify. So I'm just trying to understand like the connection between the data that's available in Gladly and then what could be implemented with Klaviyo knowing what data is available in Gladly.
Yeah. So I think like all of this goes back to one of the key things that we're trying to facilitate is the ability for other brands to innovate on our platform and to bring their data into Gladly, where customer service agents or heroes can kind of better understand what's going on with the customers that they're supporting. And so Klaviyo is a really good example of this. And yes, having worked in the Shopify space for a long time now, Klaviyo is a huge player and probably a tool that many of the Shopify brands are using or considering using or have used.
Right.
And so for us, it's like, okay, can we kind of provide context into the communications that have come from Klaviyo directly within Gladly to that support agent so they know what this customer has been reached out about? Have there been outbound campaigns? Have there been, marketing emails? Have there been certain things that they have kind of responded to or been communicated to? So that's one portion of it. The other is to kind of coordinate more outbound email efforts through Klaviyo based on customer service actions. And so say someone reaches out to you through your customer support team and they talk about a specific product that they might be interested in. They don't buy it that day with your support agent, but they're a really high kind of potential for that upsell. You'd be able to kind of flag that in Gladly, communicate that to Klaviyo, and then Klaviyo might add them to a campaign that's trying to upsell them on that specific product over the coming weeks. And so I think it's just there's a ton of different ways in which we can use that data and information. Like we have another integration with Loop Returns, which is a huge popular one on Shopify, where like you can initiate a return directly from Gladly, or you can understand when they've done a return and the status of that return and so on and so forth. And so it's all about bringing that data in, but then also sending that data out so that other tools can act on the data that's being gathered by your customer support agents.
It's amazing. So what about the future of the product? I mean, clearly there's with this new funding round, and clearly we're trying to focus on how we can enhance the agent with AI. And, I think we've kind of agreed that it's a necessary part of our day-to-day operation. I mean, I just look even for myself, for example, huge Perplexity fan, Google AI Studio is running, and there's a lot of stuff going on, at least in my media world. And it's just part of my day-to-day now. And so knowing that, like, where do you see the product kind of evolve? I mean, I'm not asking for the public roadmap, but where do you see the Gladly product evolving for the rest of this year?
Yeah, there's a couple different areas that we're going to continue to invest in. I think one is, what's very strongly associated with Gladly is this multi-channel approach. And so making sure that we're continuing to invest in the way that AI can support these different channels. And so opening it up for customers to kind of create different use cases. So one that we're kind of exploring right now is we work with a couple different airlines as an example. And so to be able to plug into their scheduling system and be able to change flights directly within Gladly in a more self-serve model versus having to talk to an agent. It's things like that where we're trying to say, okay, what are some other creative things that we can do by channel? So whether it's chat or voice or email, et cetera. And can we start to add more and more use cases to those channels to make it really easy for customers to self-serve what they want? So I think that's the first thing. The second is kind of this continually innovating with our partners and with what we call our app platform, and really opening up this ability for developers to create apps on our platform that allow us to plug into the data from those apps and connect it into Gladly so that we can read that information, meaning pass that on to your customer service agent, or pass that information back, meaning your customer service agent can take an action that then passes through to subsequent systems. So there's that aspect. The other one that we're really focused on is this idea of agent assist functionality. So can we get better and better on not only assisting agents by resolving conversations without them and gathering information when they're not there, but also by recommending kind of next steps and pre-populating forms and taking action on their behalf or anything like directly within what I would consider to be the agent view of our platform. And then lastly, I think one thing that's going to be really interesting to Shopify has this rich order database that every merchant has that you can plug into and then add machine learning algorithms or AI, generative AI on top of that can act as a kind of sales agent or a product recommendations agent on behalf of your brand. And that can show itself in a couple of different ways. It can be self-serve. I think there's a lot of brands that are already doing this self-serve where you kind of talk with like Shopify has their own, you talk with the agent and they can recommend products for you. Or some kind of agent support resources where an agent could say, okay, I'm having this conversation with a customer and they're really interested in this. We already know these things about them. And the AI can say, why don't you recommend that they bundle this with another product based on their feedback? And so I think it's kind of those different things that we're really focused on.
That's amazing. So before we kind of wrap up today, are there any kind of like final thoughts? And I mean, we've talked a lot today about a lot of different things, but is there any kind of key takeaways or any final thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah. I think one is don't fall into the trap of thinking that AI is the super agent that can do it all.
Yeah.
It is a very helpful cost-cutting tool. It's a very helpful efficiency tool, but it's also it's too narrow of a thought to think that it's going to replace headcount and just be the standalone solution. And so broaden your kind of horizons a little bit and think through, okay, there are different use cases in which AI can either gather context and information or partially automate or fully automate. And the brands that do that really well are going to be the ones that we see really excel in the customer service space. I think that the companies who will also win will continue to invest in their agents on top of that and really making sure that they're ready for this new era of customer service. Again, it's not agents answering, where's my order inquiries? It's not agents handling returns. It's agents handling the more high value conversations. And so really making sure that they're set up for success there. And then lastly, one plug that I do want to make on behalf of the Gladly team is we have our annual conference on March 5th through the 7th of this year in Nashville, where we will be highlighting a lot of really cool brands like Rothy's, like Allbirds, like Crate & Barrel, all of some of that we've talked about, and how they are managing kind of their customer support experience to be world-class brands. So would love to see everybody there as well.
Yeah, I'll make sure I add that to the show notes. That's a really good call out though. So it's called, I think it's what, Connect Live, I think is the name of the
Gladly Connect Live.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I'll make sure I add that to the show notes. It's timely because we're recording right now mid to late January, and this is going to go out in great timing for people that have time to be able to book into that conference at least. Yeah, it's great to have big brands like this and kind of see what they're doing, get a little glimpse for a couple of days, kind of get out from behind your desk and start meeting some people and hearing some other thought leaders. I think there's a lot of power in that, in getting people together and learning together. I mean, I always joke about this, but I think a lot of deals and a lot of great relationships have been built even outside of the conference hall. It's like having a beer or having a dinner with people and just, with the guards down and being able to talk. And it's great that, you're hosting this event with some great, C-suite and some thought leaders. That's really cool. So what do you believe some of the next steps are? So if people are listening, maybe, they either are using a competing solution that they're not really sure if it truly is the Swiss Army knife of customer experience, or they feel that maybe, hey, why is it that these other businesses that I respect, why have they chosen Gladly? And if that's on their minds, and, like I said, maybe they've duct taped something together and they're just not happy, they feel that they could elevate their business to another level. What do you believe kind of the next step should be for those people that are interested in learning more about Gladly?
Yeah, I think for the listeners, if our unique approach and our differentiated approach really resonated with you, I would recommend going to check out. So we've got a page up, gladly.com/fastlane, all one word, and just get connected with our team. They can walk you through the platform. They can better understand your experience and what you're looking for. We're really flexible when it comes to working with all sorts of brands. We have, customers in every single industry. And so we really do work to understand your business, your pain points, but we don't want to prescribe a solution to you that's just kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. So I hope that's resonated. And yeah, I just if that's too much, check out our website, look at our case studies. I think it kind of sells itself as far as that goes.
Yeah, this is lovely. Yeah, I see the redirect, so it's really great. So now, because most of the people listening today are going to be Shopify-powered brands, and so it's great. And Gladly really does power, the CX or the customer experience and the service for a lot of Shopify's biggest brands. So I think you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's where it's at. I mean, I know brands because I get DM'd on different things. Some people are still using just Google like just Gmail or Google Suite when they're creating a bunch of emails, but and then they have like a shared Google Doc of responses. It's not the way to run a business. And if you really want to elevate yourself and be a brand differentiator in all of these channels and leverage AI, then I think Gladly might be a great opportunity to at least have a look and see how it compares to your kind of current workflow. And yeah, but this is lovely. Thanks, Austin, for coming on the show and sharing today. It's just been I feel so humbled to get the opportunity to learn every day about how brands, these SaaS companies, how they're really here to help elevate businesses to, grow revenue or improve efficiencies. And so it's fantastic that Gladly is a really great partner with Shopify. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great afternoon. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.